I first found the guitar, it was like this whole different language. All of the unnamed emotions that are sort of existing in a hurricane inside your head, especially as a young kid, because I was probably 12 or 13 when I started playing. All those things that you didn't know how to get out, you didn't know what they were, you couldn't put them into words, you could all of a sudden put them into chords. You could translate it through an instrument. The guitar was like a language, each chord was like a sentence, each part was a paragraph or a chapter, and then you could create a whole story out of just like playing this thing. And I don't know, I became obsessed. When I first heard like punk music, it sounded as if like somebody had like broke into a radio station and wrestled the mic away and was like, now you're getting this. Like it sounded offensive. You know what I mean? It sounded like someone was doing something wrong. Once I heard punk rock, it made me want to really like learn how to play guitar. Because when you heard like whether it was like 80s hair metal or the big bands of the day, that stuff was like on a pedestal. Those guys were like uber talented. That was like, we are not human beings. We are next level superheroes playing blazing solos with like teased out hair and spandex, you know? And you can't do what we do, you know? But when I heard the Ramones and I heard like Minor Threat and I heard all of that, you know, then I was like, wait, this sounds like something I can be a part of. I had an electric by the time I was like 12 or 13. I was more interested in like creating my own thing, writing my own stuff, than I was trying to like learn a bunch of songs that I could use as party tricks, you know? So I started writing songs probably like 13 or 14, like 8th grade, going into high school. I never saw myself playing in a band or being a musician as a long-term thing. I saw it as something that I was doing because I couldn't not do it. When I got home from school or work, it's the first thing I wanted to do. And then I lived in like a punk house with a bunch of friends, and we'd go in the basement and we would just play, you know, and that was awesome. But I mean, realistically, I thought we would all just grow up and move on, and many of us did. One by one, people were just falling off, and people who couldn't let it go, like me, you know, were still there, and I couldn't let it go. And so eventually I found the guys that I play with now. I think when I found them too, I realized that these are guys who also can't let it go. We are stuck with this because it is what we are born to do. Are you doing this? She reminds me of like the evil dogs in Ghostbusters. Oh, yeah, I mean, I was probably playing Ernie Ball before I knew I was playing Ernie Ball. I was just buying the cheapest strings at whatever the guitar store was, and back then buying single strings, that's all you could like really afford, you know, whenever you broke one, you go out and get that one. So I remember the name Ernie Ball all the way back from like high school. I think it wasn't until we were on Fat Records and then we were playing like Warped Tour, I feel like, when somebody from Ernie Ball approached us and was like, hey, you guys are great, you know, you guys should play our strings. And that was the first time someone had like offered us like, oh wait, we can get these like and not have to pay for them. That would be amazing. That would help us out a lot. The first thing I noticed when we were like on Warped Tour was that a lot of my favorite bands were playing Ernie Ball strings, and those bands always sounded good. They were like bands that were like lifers, you know, guys who were playing for a long time, who were touring like madmen. When we started playing them, it was something that you trusted, you know, you trusted that it would sound good, you trusted that they wouldn't break, you knew what to expect, which is good because there's so much stuff that goes on in a live show or on tour, it's not something you want to worry about. You know, you want to know like you have something that's going to work, and now you can focus on the song, the show, the instrument, and kind of like move on with your night. They've never let us down. There's never been a problem. That's Fireside right there, with the big bowling pin past the Midas sign. Pretty much every important show that happened in Chicago in the 90s, at least most of them, happened at Fireside Bowl. 7 nights a week, and sometimes multiple shows in a night. Everybody was coming to Fireside Bowl. And so if you wanted to see a punk show, that's where you saw it. We would just come here most nights. I lived a couple miles from here, and right around doors, it would just be kids lined up along the walls here, all trying to get into the show, and the venue trying to hustle you in to try not to attract attention to the place, because I think it was kind of a mystery why there was so many just punk kids hanging out outside this bowling alley like most nights. So it was just, the neighborhood didn't know what was happening. I mean, this was it, you know, to play here was really the goal if you were a young punk band in Chicago in the 90s, you know. None of us were very careerist about it. None of us saw a world beyond this. And so this was it, to be on that stage. It was a huge status thing, you know, to be a part of that. I feel like with Rise Against, there's a heart and soul to this band that our audience are very much a part of, and you can feel that. You can feel that in the air when we play shows. It's like an electricity, and it's an emotional experience. It's an emotional exchange, which is so cool for me, because I felt like growing up in like 90s hardcore, that's what the shows were. They were like a super emotional exchange. It's what separated that kind of music from a lot of like the arena rock that was happening elsewhere in my city. It was just so much more, I don't know, authentic and real. And we're a band, we've always tried to like maintain that as our stages got bigger, as the crowds got bigger, as the stage got higher, the barricade was further away. You know, like you're always trying like, how can we maintain this closeness with our audience, you know, which we try to, you know, and sometimes we fail and sometimes we succeed, you know, but we're always trying to, and we're always remembering kind of the roots of where we came from. And I hope that, just like I was a kid in the front row for Rage Against the Machine at the Aragon Ballroom in Chicago in like 1995, and then one day was opening up for them at the LA Coliseum. I hope that the kid in the front row, that one day we're like begging to open up for his band or her band, you know? Like I think that's the awesome part of this cycle. I think of Rise Against in some ways the same way I look at like a college professor teaching like the one-on-one class every year. Rise Against is a band that we are certainly not a band that everyone's looking to like reinvent the wheel. We're gonna do some crazy Radiohead left turn and like, you know, make some music that's gonna like spark some new direction in music. Like, we are a nuts and bolts four-guy punk and hardcore band, you know? But that's okay, because if you're like a college professor and you're teaching that one-on-one class every year, you're kind of teaching the same class every year. But the people that are coming in every year are different. You know, the world still needs you to do that. The world needs you to introduce these ideas to an audience that has not yet heard them. That's the way I look at Rise Against. But before we get too ahead of ourselves, I realize that our audience is oftentimes a younger audience. But even for our fans that stick around, our songs serve as either reminders or ground rules or just like the basic information about like the way we view the world. And I feel like there's a lot of room for that to exist in this musical landscape.